What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Milwaukee Sports Performance Podcast, and I am here to talk about golf today. Are you a golfer that struggled with back pain, hip pain, forearm pain, or maybe you're just someone that's losing distance and doesn't understand why? Then this episode is for you. My name is Michael Falk, and I'm the founder of Kinetic Sports Medicine Performance. I'm a certified physical therapist through Tylus Institute, and I am an avid golfer. So what does a golf clinical performance assessment look like, and why should you go see a physical therapist for your game? At our clinic, we help golfers that fit into many different types of buckets. We work with the high-level junior player trying to make a high school golf team, and maybe he has aspirations of playing college golf. We also help the older player that might be dealing with pain or injury, and that's why they reach out for the first time. Maybe it's just the older player that's starting to lose distance, or they feel like they can't get the club into the same spots that they used to. And then we help everyone in between. One of my favorite parts about the game is that I can play around with my 7-year-old son, my buddies, my wife, my dad in his 60s, and even my great-grandfather in his 90s. And what other sport can you say that? I think that each one of these players need to be treated in a unique manner relative to their goals. They all need an individualized program that fits their physical needs, the time that they have to devote to it, and their golf goals. So what does a golf clinical performance So what does a golf performance physical therapy evaluation even look like? It starts with a phone call with me initially, where we dive into exactly what your goals are, what's going on with your game, and any injury history that you may have. I also really want to know about your current fitness routine and what you hope to accomplish and get out of the program. The next step is to actually come into the clinic, and we start by going through the basic Tylus Performance Institute movement assessment. This is a good starting point, but all it does is tell us what you can and cannot do. It does not give us any information about why. After that initial screen, then we'll move into a much more detailed assessment, typically starting on the table, looking at joint ranges of motion, how your spine, hips, shoulders, and other potential limitations to determine if mobility is a problem. After that initial screen, we move into a much more detailed assessment, typically on one of the tables in our clinic. We look at the specifics of individual joint ranges of motion, how your spine moves, how your shoulders move, how your hips move, and any other potential limitations that we identified in that screen. But we try to go one level deeper and try to understand, is this a passive mobility issue, or do you just lack the control over the range of motion that you already have available? Because those are two very different things. Many times we see people that say they're really tight and restricted, but we put them on the table and they have full passive mobility through their hips or shoulders. I had this happen with a golfer the other day that said, my lats are so tight. I feel this big stretch when I make my turn. And when I looked at it, it's like, your lats are not actually tight. They have full range of motion. We're clearly able to get your arm all the way overhead. He just doesn't have the ability to control it, to keep his core stiff enough as he's swinging the club. And he ends up feeling like his lats are tight. And we're going to approach those individual issues very differently. And that's why it's very important to have a clear understanding of what's limiting you. After we do that initial mobility assessment, we have some unique technology in our clinic. We're actually able to measure isolated muscle strength. This can be really helpful in players that have pain or past injury histories, and to see if they're dealing with weakness, strength imbalances that might be affecting what their body's feeling or how they're moving. With younger player, it can establish a really good baseline and give us some ideas of areas that we might be able to improve, to benchmark them against their peers and see how can we help develop a program that's unique and specifically tailored to your needs. After we do that strength assessment, it's going to start depending on what a player's goal is. If it's someone that really wants to try to pick up clubhead speed, we're going to go into a power assessment. Typically, that's going to include jumping on our force place, after the basic strength assessment. After the basic strength assessment, the evaluation is going to differ a little bit based off what your goal is. If a player really wants to improve club head speed, we're going to start going into our power assessment. Typically, that's going to include jumping on our force plates to assess how well we produce force and how effectively the players are able to push off into the ground to generate their club head speed. This metric in particular, not just jump height, but it's actually something called vertical propulsive impulse, how well we're able to push down into the ground, is one of the key physical components when we look at some of the world's longest hitters that we can actually work on and improve in the gym that will directly typically correlate to improving club head speed. Obviously, we need to be able to maintain optimal launch conditions, hit the middle of the club head to see the benefits in terms of ball flight and improved distance. But it is a key physical metric, and we can actually measure that, compare you to other golfers, set goals, and try to watch that improve over time. After we do the jumps on our force plates, we'll typically do a series of other rotational power assessments and upper body power assessments, throwing medicine balls and tracking the distance. We have normative values that we're able to look for potential weakness, potential energy leaks, and areas that you might benefit by focusing on if you have a bigger upper body power deficit than a lower body power deficit to actually improve your club head speed. Once we complete all this testing, then we'll start putting together a plan for you based off the results, your goals, and your time frame. Everything is individualized to you. So what does Golf Performance Physical Therapy program look like? At Kinetic, one of our first foundational principles of a good program is one that actually gets done. For some players, this means that we start with a simple daily routine that may only take 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Obviously, this has some limitations, and at some point you will stop seeing progress. But if you are not someone that is regularly working out and has a regular fitness routine, the hardest thing to do is add 10 to 15 minutes of physical activity every day of the week. Once you transition into this new habit of doing something and moving your body every day, it is much easier to start adding an extra 5 to 10 minutes 3 days a week, to start going to a gym, and eventually be able to get into a true fitness routine that you're in the gym 30 to 60 minutes multiple times per week. For other players that have a regular fitness routine, but it might not be optimized for golf, maybe it's not individualized to their unique needs and how their body moves, we're able to come up with a daily warm-up that specifically targets their movement deficits and limitations, and then we're able to help work with them on their gym routine to get the most out of their time that they're spent to actually improve their on-course physical performance and ability. We also think a key element is availability. So making sure that we are working with players to be more durable so that they're able to continue to practice and play. So what does a typical golf workout look like? I think if I say golf workout, you probably start thinking it's just a variety of rotational movements using bands, cables, really light weights, maybe trying to use these implements to mimic the golf swing, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. And this is where goals come into mind. The program for a 55-year-old golfer that has a history of back pain and maybe recently had a rotator cuff repair should look vastly different than the program for a 17-year-old high school player that's trying to gain speed and play college golf after they make the varsity team. At the end of the day, a good golf performance program should actually impact on-course performance, not just performance in the gym. Unfortunately, if you play tournament golf, you don't start at a lower stroke value because you can lift 10 pounds heavier than the guy next to you. Everything's determined about how quickly you can get the ball in the hole, and everything in the gym should try to support that end goal. Of course, there are some common trends that we see across all players that we work with just by the nature of the rotational sports, the injuries that we see. So we want to make sure that we either maintain or improve mobility for players, and we want to help develop postural muscles, particularly through the back of the shoulders, to decrease neck stress, neck tightness, and keep the shoulders healthy. Typically, we're going to want to see upper body and power improve, rotational power improve, and again, one of the biggest key performance indicators that we have is improving that vertical propulsive power in terms of club head. The specifics of that program are going to depend on the individual's physical ability and their goals. We believe in trying to fit the program to the player, not trying to shoehorn a player into a generic program that we give every other golfer that walks through the door. So will pursuing a clinical golf performance program help you play better golf? Hopefully, but likely not in isolation. So I can explain this better through a story about a player that we recently worked with. He was a player that was in his early 60s. He was a single-digit handicap player, regularly played in the Wisconsin State Golf Association events, and he was a past club champion at his club. He came in for the first time initially dealing with a little bit of hip and back pain, some elbow pain, especially on the outside of his elbow as he was warming up, and he noticed that he was starting to lose distance. When we took him through his assessment, he was very limited in both his hips and his thoracic spine rotation, which was going to likely result in a shorter swing and lost distance. We quickly got to work on a program that addressed those deficits and also got him out of pain. He's very diligent with his home program and made really rapid progress. Unfortunately, right after we saw the progress in my office, his scores ballooned in the other direction, and his handicap rose to a level that he hadn't seen in years. So hold on, back up. I just told you that a really good golf performance program should result in better on-course performance. And now I'm telling you that this guy that saw all this progress started playing worse. That's absolutely correct. But that's not where the story ends. What we realized was as he had improved his mobility, he started making a bigger turn through his backswing, which resulted in him losing the timing because he was very used to his restricted, tight swing that was mostly arm movements because he couldn't move through any other sections of his body. So as he was able to move that club through a larger range of motion, he had more distance potential, but he could not control that new mobility and he'd lost some of his coordination. So we shifted our focus in the gym to working on stability and control so that he was able to actually use that new range of motion. And he got into some sessions with his teaching pro that helped him coordinate that newfound range of motion, restore his timing, and get his feel back. Once he got that dialed in, he rapidly started playing some of the best golf that he'd seen recently. The scores dropped, handicap moved back to its prior level, and he started winning some state tournaments. So if the gym isn't a one-to-one correlation with golf improvement, then why should you even bother doing it? There's a few reasons. It can help you feel better and stay healthy so that you're able to practice more. I understand that's not a sexy answer and it's not a quick fix, but truthfully, the way to get better at golf is to practice playing golf better. And many players are not able to practice or play as much as they want to because their body hurts. They play 18 holes, they can't swing a club the next day because their back's tight or their hips sore, or they're dealing with a case of golfer's elbow, they can't grip the club. So I can help improve how your body moves so that you're Another reason is that I can help improve how your body moves so that you can get the club into better positions and get more out of your lessons. I think when I talk to local golf pros and players, some of the most frustrating lessons for both parties are the ones that the golf pro clearly sees an issue, identifies it, and asks the player to try to fix it. The player clearly understands what the golf pro is asking him to do and is trying his best to follow those directions, but he just can't do it. And sometimes that isn't the fault of the player and a lack of skill. It's just literally that he cannot get the club into the position that golf coach is asking him for. And so we have two ways around that we can assist. One is we can give the golf pro some context that, hey, this player is dealing with this specific issue. They're lacking this range of motion. Maybe they're dealing with pain when they get in this position. So you need to find a way to teach around that restriction. Don't waste time trying to work on it and find another way for them to hit the ball. Or in many instances, we're able to identify that deficit that's holding them back and address it in the clinic or the gym so that now when you go to that lesson tee, you're actually able to follow the directions and it's easier to get the club into some of those positions. A third reason that you should do it is it can help you improve your physical qualities that have been shown in the literature to help you move the club faster. Assuming we maintain the launch conditions, faster club head speeds are going to give you greater distances. When you look at the data from the PGA Tour, typically the closer you push the ball to the green, the lower the score is going to be. And that does take time, but it can be really impactful. Unfortunately, there's very little that we can do in the gym or on the treatment table that is going to help you chip it better, hole more putts, or get the ball in the hole sooner. Those have to be done on the practice. One other thing I want to touch on is the longevity aspect a little bit more, because I do think it is one of the greatest things about this sport. It's the ability for you to play for your entire lifetime. And I think this is a relatively underappreciated aspect of a golf clinical performance program. We see many men and women that come into our office for the first time in their 50s and 60s that are dealing with pain, lost mobility, old injuries, lost strength, and it's really starting to affect how they can play and enjoy the sport. Unfortunately, many of these issues actually started with mistakes that they made in their 30s and 40s. And trying to stay ahead of this curve can be really helpful. One of my favorite sayings is that an ounce of prevention is often worth a pound of cure. So some people ask me, what's the easiest way to gain clubhead speed in your 60s? And my answer would be, don't lose it in your 50s. What's the best way to avoid neck pain in your 50s? Probably maintain your mobility and scapular strength and posture when you're younger so you don't put so much stress on those areas. And what's the best way to get better at golf? Unfortunately, it's probably practice more, and it's really tough to practice when your body hurts. So hopefully this episode gives you a little insight into what a golf clinical performance program looks like, what the evaluation process looks like, how we can customize it, and who it is for. If you're listening to this and any of these situations sound like you, I would love to chat with you more. You can go to our website, www.kineticsmp.com. That'll be in the show notes. Click that contact button in the upper right corner, and you can grab 15 minutes on my schedule to set up a free phone call. I'd love to chat with you about your body, what's going on with your golf game, and what your goals are, and see if you'd be a fit for this program with us. So as always, I appreciate everyone's time for listening to this podcast. If you learned something today that you found helpful, I'd love it if you would share it with a friend, subscribe to it, and share it with other golfers that might benefit. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.